Welcome to Podheim, Jiroc's Valheim podcast. Let's give him the business.
Hey everybody, today is February 7th, 2023. I'm your host, Jiroc the Viking, and joining me today are my fellow Vikings, Gwen the Shield Maiden.
Bonjour.
We also have Shield Maiden, Morning Darkness.
Hello.
We also have joining us today, Viking Jules.
Hello, everyone.
In digital form.
Yes, digital Jules.
Yep. And we also have joining us again for the third time. So awesome to have you back, Patrik Jarlestam, composer for Valheim.
Hejsan allihopa.
Hey.
Nice.
So good to have you back. We got cut a little short on our last interview, and there was so much to talk about. We had to have you back to discuss more of that amazing new song music that came with the Mistlands update. I was going to say the Mistlands music, but actually there were a few things added to the rest of the world as well. So I can't call it Mistlands music because it's Mistlands update music, like because it's in other biomes too, right?
Exactly. A couple of things that we felt were missing in previous places to tell the story of Valheim have been added as well.
Yeah. And so you guys have gone back and added new music to the other biomes. Is that something that might become a theme as it just continues to progress wherever you think that music might be needed?
I hope so. I mean, I have a whole roadmap of stuff I'd like to do for the game, but we haven't gotten to the place where we've been able to discuss that. So there are a fair number of things I would like to add. For example, weather-specific music, time-specific music for the different biomes that already exist. I think someone said about the crypts in the swamp don't have any specific music. So that's a thing I have been thinking about adding there as well. So my hope is that there will be. I've sent out a message to the team to check what we will be working on in the future to make sort of a roadmap together, but we haven't gotten to the stage of discussing that yet.
Cool. Well, let's see. So we were discussing before we started recording that there were 11 new tracks basically added with the Mistlands update. Is that correct?
That's true. And there was actually a 12th track that was added in between the old and the new, which is for the caves in the mountains. So that was added before in between, but you could see it as sort of part of the pre-Mistlands update.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, so I've prepped the songs to play here. Is there one that we should start to listen to and maybe then discuss afterwards? We can listen to a part of it however long you feel is appropriate.
Yes. What should we start with? Let's do, I think let's do Mistlands, the main theme.
The main
because
theme.
That sort of is the basis for a lot of the other things of the music that was made.
Okay. So let's see if I got this right, because I had them named previously before everybody got on.
I just want to climb higher as you listen to that.
So that song I have here it's something like a little over 11 minutes. Does that sound right?
That is true. The reason why it's so long is that one of the restraints of the music playback system of Valheim we have at the moment is that we can't have multiple tracks per place. It's not just been prioritized to set that up in a different way. So I made basically the main theme, which is about 3.5 minutes, and then there's a reduced ambient version of that, and then there's an even more reduced ambient version of that, making it 11 minutes before you actually hear the theme again, so that there was a sort of built-in form of length and variation in the theme.
Nice.
Basically a showcase of a slight idea that I would like to implement for all the other biomes later, if possible.
Well,
That would be nice.
yeah, and every time I hear that, I think back to what Gwen said about it one time, that specific song where the Mistlands like this very foreboding place, with the mist and all the crazy creatures that attack you when you go in. But then you hear this music and it feels very calm, like everything's going to be okay. And you can recover your 10 tombstones.
It makes me very excited to have a base in the Mistlands. We're like halfway done with it right now, and it's so exciting.
That's actually a really good point that I wanted to, because of the way that this playback system works, that if we would have chosen music that's more high intensity and more foreboding, then you would feel ill at ease all of the time, and we could never change that again. And that wouldn't be fun for the players. So I erred on the side of, let's make it a place that when you've conquered it or become part of it, you can actually build a base and you would like to spend time there. Because that's the thing that I've heard from several people and friends, that they built a base which was on the cusp of the Black Forest, and after that, because the music of the Black Forest plays, they've actually dismantled the base and moved it into the Meadows, so that it
really,
they're longer.
It's one of my favorite themes.
I love that song. To be fair, the Plains Fuling Camp music, I built a farm, and that music got me going. It got me to build that farm, and it was just like every time I went in there, I was like, oh yeah, this is different, right? This is new, right? Right? This wasn't here before, right?
That's true, because that was the thing that wasn't sort of part of the plan with the Plains, of making it sort of a nice place to be there. I would like to add Plains music that isn't as ominous necessarily when you farm. But I think the Fuling Camp is quite a cool one in that there's a story in that one, in the sense that it's a living culture, the Fuling, and that lives on after, if you eradicate the camp.
Can we listen to it real quick? Or
Since we brought that one up, let's listen to the Fuling Camp.
Since you've got this cool new tool. I love like the little like sting in there that you've got. Like it feels there are nefarious things going on here.
There's a lot going on in that one.
There's a lot going on. I love it.
Is the bass percussion the same as the song when you get the Fuling raid? Did you reuse a lot of the same kind of bassline percussions?
I would say I used the same. I haven't thought about that. It probably is. I think that one is a combination of a couple of patches from a synthesizer called Omnisphere that has a great pizzicato staccato attack sound. but also synasamples, strings, which use pizzicato for all of the string instruments. So there's a fair chance there is a reuse of that. I try to have not just thematic couplings within a soundtrack, but also sound-wise couplings so that there are connections. For example, in Mistlands, you can hear in the background that there's a harp that comes in and comes out, and that's a reference, of course, to the Meadows soundtrack that has the harp sort of playing these very arpeggiated lines, which is something I wanted to do. And then, of course, cello, which is one of the main instruments of the whole Valheim soundtrack, comes back here. Yeah. And I wanted to give some shout outs there. It's a fantastic musician called Freya Schack Arnott who plays the cello in this, and she's a fellow Scandinavian living here in Australia. She's actually part Australian, part Danish. So it's really fun to get to record with her. And she also plays key fiddle on Haldor, which we probably will be listening to later. But it's nice because Danish is not my mother tongue; it's Swedish. But when I was young, we in high school, people were going on a trip, and they were going like on a trip down to South Europe. I didn't have the money to go, so we were a couple of people who said we're not able to go, but we'll go on a little trip to Denmark instead. Which is, you get on the train and it's 30 minutes from, like, in 30 minutes you're in another country, very close. And my friend is part Danish, part Swedish, and I was speaking what we call fake Danish. Like you use Swedish words, but you try to put on a Danish accent when we're in Copenhagen. And she just got so angry with me and said, no, just be quiet. Don't even try. It's an insult. And I got so offended that I internally said, I am going to learn enough proper Danish that she's going to one day be able to say, like, oh, cool, that actually sounds like Danish. So I've been sort of practicing Danish whenever I could. And she did a couple of years ago. She's a very close friend of mine, did say, like, oh, you actually speak Danish now. And so I'm happy that I can do that. So when I record with Freya Schack Arnott, then I get to practice my Danish as well, which is quite fun.
Yeah, another language, if you don't practice, you lose it quick. I've tried learning a few languages and just don't get as many opportunities to use it, and it just kind of fades away.
Exactly. And one of the things I really wanted to talk about when it comes to the Mistlands track, because it was actually a track I had written before as we probably said it last time we chatted, as a possible main theme for the whole Valheim thing, but it didn't eventuate. So the Mistlands theme is the second of those themes. And the thing I wanted to try this time around is recording more real musicians, because it sounds better. There's a different budget this time. And so we've actually been recording people here in Sydney and in Sweden. So it's the melody is layered with cello. Mm-hmm. And in the soundtrack, in that theme, there's normal orchestral flute, there's an alto flute, and then it's layered with a double bass as well, which is recorded by Matthias Palm, who's the principal double bass player of Helsingborg Symphony Orchestra, who's also the symphony orchestra who premiered music from Valheim live for the first time. So that's why it gets its sort of special sound. Those three instruments, the flute, the cello, the double bass, compressed together to become one voice.
Very cool.
And I think that has an airy and sort of Harry Potter-ness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pacing is when we were listening to that first track, the Mistlands one. The pacing is interesting because it seems to change throughout the music. The intro has this kind of, I don't know how to describe. I'm not very, very good at like music terms, but it doesn't seem to be a regular pacing. And then when the second kind of phase kicks in with the additional instruments and so on, then we get into a bit more of a groove. It feels like then we're moving. The first one, it just feels like we're not sure where we're going yet. We're just, taking a few steps here, a few steps there,
Exactly. And it's that switch between, it's in 6/8. 6/8 is a very dancey type of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. And Well, Haldor's actually in 4/4 now that I think about it, but it feels like a 6/8 in my head, even though it isn't. But it switches between a 6/8, which is sort of dancey, and then you have the 3/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what it goes between, and it has that sort of shifting pattern. But then, then you get into a sort of a more straightforward 6/8 in the next theme. And the form is intro, which is the A theme, which builds up, and then there's a B theme, the A theme, the C theme to create a little bit of more interest, which is more flute based, and then back to the main theme again because I didn't want to over orchestrate it. But in this instance with Mistlands, I had to make a mix which is more flat because the original one which is probably the one that's going to be on the soundtrack, is more dynamic and really builds up and then goes down and builds up and goes down. That doesn't work well in the game because if there's something that's very high dynamic and intense, when there's nothing happening on screen, it looks very strange. You feel like you're going to be attacked, but nothing's happening. And that's the thing we try to avoid in video games. So I had to make a more compressed version that plays in the game.
Yeah, that's... Oh, go ahead, Morning.
I was going to say, to confirm, does that mean that there is going to be a second soundtrack? Like the post...
The way it's been talked about before, and I think that's the way it's being worked on now, is that we're continuing to add to the soundtrack, and it's all in the end going to be one long soundtrack. So I think that these files will be added to the digital versions.
Oh, that's going to make so many people so happy.
As far as I understand it, that's how it's being worked out, and they might correct me later, but I think that's it. This music, the Mistlands music, has been added to the vinyl soundtrack, which is going to be released. We're lucky that the deadline was slightly delayed for the vinyl soundtrack, so we could push this in as well. But I think the idea is that the soundtrack's going to grow and it's all going to be added to it for everybody to enjoy. And I think what was said before, at least, was that if you bought the soundtrack, that would be added. But I don't know if they might go with it's going to be soundtrack part 2. Yeah. I don't know. I can't promise that.
Well, it's interesting because I think we talked about it last time, where you were saying that a theme song for a biome can't be too calm or too exciting because it has to sort of fit any activity that you're doing in the biome. And if you want an exciting soundtrack like a boss fight, then it's specific to that event. And it just reminds me when we're doing music for film and television, we're always trying to do the music to fit what's going on. So, we have that luxury where we know what's going on, whether it's an action scene or a quiet scene. But every once in a while, I watch a movie where they did not pick the right music. And people will be just kind of calmly talking or walking through a scene and the music's going. I'm thinking, this is inappropriate for this moment. They're just standing there having a casual conversation. But that can have an interesting effect. Like there could be this crazy wild action scene or, some big explosion or something, but then everything goes quiet and it's just a very, calming song. And that actually plays into the psychology of the viewer, right? Your experience it's different if you're watching something exciting, but hearing something calm. So it really depends, like as the filmmaker and the composer that you're working with, what are you trying to make the audience experience? So with you, that's got to be a huge challenge, because is it easier to create a song for like a boss fight than it is for the background soundtrack for a biome? It seems like it would, because the boss fight, it's this big action thing. So you pick the theme and you go with the action, but then the biome, you kind of have to not get us too excited, but still, it's got to be a little bit of a challenge.
It is, but I would say that it's an equal challenge, because for me, it's both about storytelling. How do we? It's just that in the boss fights, you go there's no punches pull, and the difficulty there is that you want to add so many things, and you have to keep it together and not feel too compressed. Even though, of course, the boss battle music is relatively highly compressed. With a biome theme, you have usually more time to play with things and tell a story. So I feel it's slightly more subtle when working on biomes, and more high octane when it's the bosses, but it can take a few times to get like the right feel. And with the Mistlands boss music, it's that boss battle evolved a couple of times. I think it's the third try. That was the one where the boss was sort of more finalized and the music fit in.
Or the Queen, the new Mistlands boss.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe we should listen to that one next. Since we're talking about it.
This one's so good.
Okay, here it comes. If you love all things Viking, just like I do, check out my sponsor, the Grimfrost. They have thousands of modern and historical Viking products. Check out this badass outfit I put together for Halloween and my online streams. You can use my link, jiroctheviking.com/Grimfrost. It makes me want to headbang and make my beard fly all over the place.
It is so nice as a heavy metaler for life to get to compose this type of music, because there haven't been any games before that this was really fitting in. I've done a couple of fun demos when working on game jams or similar, but getting to do this is really fun. Side story here was that I had bought after completing the soundtrack, the first Valheim soundtrack, I bought an 8-string custom Australian maker's guitar because I want to have something that's really heavy, really low. And when the boss wasn't finalized, I wrote a couple of ideas for that. But then I had to go to Sweden for this concert with the Helsingborg Symphony Orchestra, and I didn't have an 8-string guitar there. I couldn't use this one here. So my friend Jesper Nielsen, who played guitar live with the symphony orchestra, he had actually bought a 7-string guitar so he could play the boss themes music live on stage. So that's the guitar I got to borrow from him to record this in his flat. So I'm very, very thankful to him that I got to do that. So it didn't turn out to go as low as, like, it wasn't an 8-string, but it didn't matter. I think it got the heaviness from a couple of other things as well. But I'm super happy with how it turned out. And you can hear that in the B part of this theme. You can hear that sort of ticking.
Yes.
You can tell that I'm a fan of Christopher Nolan and his movies, because the idea, like the ticking of time. Of course, there's many patches that have those types of sounds, so that's not a new thing. But of course, I really like his movies, and there's parts of that in it's not Normandy. It's his World War II movie on the beaches of.
Dunkirk.
Was it Dunkirk?
Dunkirk. And of course, Tenet, which I actually really like as a movie. But it's sort of that's what I had in the back of my head I wanted to use at that time. That it's a way of keeping intensity while pulling down the dynamic level of the music. So it feels like it's still intensive, but low dynamics. And then you pull up into the A theme again. My favorite is actually the end of the song, which is more sort of Aliens inspired, because that was one of the original ideas, was to look at the music of the movie Aliens for the boss, but then it evolved from that.
I know that they were inspired by some of their artwork from that movie.
I mean, who isn't? H.R. Geiger is fantastic.
Yeah, that's when people, being a filmmaker, I get asked a lot, what's your, can you recommend movies or TV shows, or what's your favorite? And I always say, well, Aliens is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh.
Lots of, it's for so many reasons, but the music is obviously a huge part of that experience as well. So I appreciate it. So what's really interesting about that Mistlands Queen, of course they have all their production value and the artwork and everything and the level design of the dungeon that the Queen is in and all this. But a friend of mine I've known for like more than 30 years, he had just gotten to fight the Mistlands Queen the other day. And he said he was so excited, like I've not seen him before talking about Valheim. And he says, that fight and that music, like he specifically, like that fight and that music, like that whole experience is just so intense. Like I just absolutely loved it. Like he was falling back in love with the game again. And I was like, yep, the music, the environment, but the music will really energize you for that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy with that. And it's the first boss that's in an encased or encapsulated space before, which the other bosses have not been. So that I think also made it more of a mayhem.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Yeah. It was fun. I usually start I have a couple of patches of like cinematic percussion stuff that I use as a base plate. So I usually put that in to sort of find what's the energy level of the boss going to be like, and then I build off of that. Or make a heavy, like a guitar riff, and then put the percussion on it. But guitar and percussion are basically the main thing. And when you have them, you have 80% of the song. Then it feels right.
Nice. Well, we have a few other songs still to go to. Do you have a preference of something you want to talk about now?
Let's do the Greydwarf Camp.
Yes.
Oh, the Greydwarf Camp. Yes, I have that one here. I really love that transition there. You have that sort of the deep sounds that are playing, and then it goes to is that a stringed instrument that it goes to? Dun, 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 in between after that?
Yes, it's a lot of pizzicato stuff and a couple of I think it's colegno when you it's very hidden in the background, but when you strike the strings of a string instrument with the wooden side of a bow instead of you playing with the hair side of the bow, the colegno battuto, which is really fun. This is one of my most favorite forms of music that I haven't used so much, but it's really good for of course, when I say it, I forget what it's called. I remember I got a book of old classical music and dances, and it basically goes through all of the dance forms. It's a great little thing to use when you're stuck in what's the form of this piece, because in classical music we don't necessarily think of the way as a pop song, like we have the verse and the chorus, but it's more of a B C form or variations in between. And there's there's hundreds of years of history of different songs and forms that have been tried. This is the oh God, I should remember. It's not Rodando. I will get back to that. But anyway, the form is A, B, A, C, A, D for this song. That you have a main theme that you come back to, and then you vary the middle bit in between.
Okay.
So you can say it as that. It's an A-B song in a way, but if you feel like you reorchestrate the different pieces, it becomes different. A different feel to it. And so that's an idea from an old dance song from the 17th century that is just used in this. And here, doubling of cello and double bass. And I think that there's a sense of space, how big an instrument is with a double bass. That is really nice. You can feel that there is a bigger instrument playing it, even if it's playing in the same register as the cello. We had a long session, me and Matthias Palm, or Hanskog, Matthias Hanskog pump, where we checked out the 3 double basses that he can use. And one is an old one that has been in his family for a long time, Russian bass that is very charismatic. And we wanted to make something with Valheim for it because it just has a very unreal character when you listen to it. And it sounds probably strange for many people to say that, well, don't all double basses sound approximately the same, the big basses? No, they have a lot of character, as every sort of instrument does. But in the end, that character didn't fit with the other instruments we had recorded. So we used a 5-stringed double bass. They're massive. That has a more of a like an equalized character. It's a very good classical orchestra style bass. But I am looking forward, and I think that, or I know that me and Matthias are going to collaborate more soundtracks, because he's an avid Valheim fan actually, and he contacted me because he loved Valheim so much, and that's our connection. And now we're friends, which is super fun. And we will probably use that double bass for something in the future because it just sounds so gnarly. It sounds like a werewolf of a double bass.
Oh.
Well, it feels very rich. And the first time I heard that, it made me think more of the Grey Dwarves as sort of a sentient race of beings that have a backstory. That's right. That's what it made me feel. Like, I want to know more about their backstory now. As I'm listening to this, like, I could just see them going on adventures and doing things as themselves, like in their own little tribes. And like, I want to know more about that. You know,
that is exactly what I hope for making. Sorry.
If I recall, there is a runestone that talks a little bit about them.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want more. Like, I want the Grey Dwarf, the little short films, you know, which I may have to make myself, right? But yeah,
no, that was exactly why I was hoping to achieve that, because they do feel very, for lack of a better word, human, but they feel they're their own sentient creature and have their own ideas and wants, and we're coming into their world and we don't know anything about how they sort of function, but they're I wanted to give them character, and I think that with music it's a good way of playing to that strength of seeing them in a different way.
Well, and this track also definitely has like, to me, it just, there's this little mischievous aspect to it, and you know, the Grey Dwarves are kind of inquisitive and a bit weird and a bit like mischievous. They run around you, try to throw you rocks, and then run away. You know, I think that track really encapsulates that kind of quirk that they have.
Exactly, that the throwing of the rock and the running away. That is one of the things that I had in the back of my head writing it, because it's such a Grey Dwarf thing, or for some of the Grey Dwarfs at least.
Yeah. Well, and I remember being so specifically intrigued by the Grey Dwarf, the sound of the Greydwarf spawner itself. It's like these really creepy, evil whispers. And so, like,
I call it the jazz. The jazz. To me, that's what it's the kind of jazz. How do you call it? The Charleston cymbal sound.
Yeah,
it kind of
right
sounds like that.
Yes.
Well, I'm just talking about the sound that the spawner itself had before the music.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like the game sound itself.
Yeah, it's very whispering.
Yeah, it makes that noise. It makes that like a weird whispering sound.
I interpreted that as like whispers.
Yeah, it does sound like whispers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so how do you feel that adds to the mood of the Greydwarf spawner with the game sound, and then this like really like quirky little sound that you've got going for them?
I think that it tells two different stories, and sometimes that's really powerful, because when things don't necessarily line up to tell one single story, they become more powerful. A great example of that is the Beatles tune A Day in the Life, which is two completely different musical ideas that John and Paul had, but that they put together and has become probably one of the most famous and best tracks of all time for many people. And I think that the Spawner Camp sound is it's an ominous sound. It's something you should look out for. And I think that sound design, for me, it tells you how the world works. So when you hear that sound, you know it's unnatural and something to look out for, while the music tells you how it feels to be there. And I feel like that's the sound is one-dimensional because it's supposed to be one-dimensional. It's just a spawning point.
Right.
But with the
right.
music around it, it now tells of this story of this working sentient group of beings that do summon, and for them the summoning sound is a normal sound. That's their world, but we've stepped into that. I like that duality.
Well, being in the film business for so long, every once in a while, a movie will play a soundtrack that seems to tell the story itself. Like I could just close my eyes and listen and see a story happening. And with that song for the Grey Dwarfs, that's kind of what it does for me. Like I sort of see a greater story and a backstory for them. And I'm sure you're familiar with Basil Poledouris, right?
No, not yet.
Famous composer of lots of movies. One of my favorite movies that he did is for Conan the Barbarian, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And the movie itself it's okay. It's not bad. The director took it serious instead of like goofy from all those movies that came out in the 80s that were more goofy. But what does it for me with that movie every time is the soundtrack. Like I bought that soundtrack when I was young. I listened to it. I can see the whole movie and even more, storytelling as I listen to that soundtrack. And that's kind of what that song right there, the Grey Dwarf theme did for me. Like I see a story in the world of the Grey Dwarfs, and I have to talk to the writer more to see what's in the works for the Grey Dwarf. I'd love to know more about them and see more lore with them. That would be awesome.
I can see a possibility of writing music that's like emotional string music in the sense that to tell a story of the Grey Dwarfs going forward. That now we have got our first insight, but this is a battle situation, which is not their normalcy. And I feel like there could be a storytelling weave that comes out of this, and the main theme of the Greydwarf Camp could be turned into something quite beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well,
I think we should.
Yeah,
let's do two double builds here. I think let's do the Dvergr excavation site and the Dvergr tower.
Okay, dig site first. And if you need a new gaming PC or laptop, check out Zydax Computers. I own one and I absolutely love it. And they offer a lifetime desktop parts and labor warranty. Can't get better than that. Just use my link, jiroctheviking.com/Zydax. So yeah, that was. We'll talk about that here, but I'll play the Dvergr Tower also.
Yes. So here are two tracks where I use the same instruments for both of them. So they're very much linked in their timbre, their sound, but very different feelings, because this one has a slow 6/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, while the previous one was a 12/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's so hard to count those long ones in English for me. Because that's what I've been practicing all my life, to count in Swedish instead. But it's really cool because I wanted to showcase that it's was my favorite clarinetist, Philippa Murphy-Haste, on both clarinet and bass clarinet. And I thought it was really fun to sort of there's a murky magical quality or a dark magical quality to a bass clarinet that I wanted to get out there, and it's fantastic. And her playing is just so nice.
Yeah,
so happy how that turned out. And the Dvergr Tower was the original one that was supposed to be, and then I was wandering around the world and I found this place that I didn't know what it was. Which turned out to be the excavation site. I thought we have to have a separate theme for this, because the tower and the excavation site say two very different things when you go there. So
They do.
proposed that we're going to have two separate themes for them.
Yeah, I have to say, I actually listened to this twice already today, but listening to it just now, I had this whole little like mental cartoon go through my head of where they're like grumbling and shushing each other, but still making too much noise while mining the soft tissue.
they're very interesting characters, the Dvergr, and because they're a friendly race in the sense if you don't attack them. And I wanted to have that sense of mysticism and awe, but also very much like Terry Pratchett Discworld magicians type characters that do grumble, that do step on each other's like cloaks and things, and they're slightly clumsy sometimes, but also they're sort of reminds me. There's another game by published by Coffee Stain Studios called Deep Rock Galactic that I play.
Oh yeah,
and there's something about the dwarves that you play in that game as well that has influenced back into this. I think it's the meeting between Harry Potter and Deep Rock Galactic dwarves that made and Discworld, Terry Pratchett's wizards. That for me are the Dvergr.
It definitely.
And also, there's marimba here, which I'm really happy. I play marimba, but
yes,
very infrequently nowadays. But it's so nice when that instrument gets added, because it has a timbre that's just so beautiful and nice.
Yeah, it was so much fun talking about that last time too.
Well, yeah, it definitely has the feeling of magic, which is at least 3 of the 4 new Dvergr that are there, and I've always been a huge fan of archaeological stories, whether they're in the past or xenoarchaeologist stories in the future, and of course a huge fan of the Indiana Jones films. And as soon as when the Mistlands first released, and I saw the Dvergr, and they're out there, and they have these like archaeological dig sites, and there's all these giant bones of the Jotun all over the place. This song is one of those too, that it feels like I'm listening to an archaeological dig, right, for the dig site, for the excavation site, but with a little hint of the mystical, right? Like you were saying, like the Terry Pratchett Discworld or Harry Potter, like they're fun. They're not these like the traditional dwarves are like the big, axe wielding, thick. Dvergr are a little bit different than the traditional dwarf. They're maybe a little more inquisitive. They're out there digging up, old archaeological, ruins and stuff, or leftovers from history. And this song really plays into that well. And then when you go to the tower, it still has a hint of curiosity, but I feel like even more of the mysticism there. When we're in that tower, like we're in a magical place, which is something completely new for Valheim, that you're around magic that's not attacking you, at least until you attack them. Everything else in the game before that had magic would just instantly, come at you with it. But here, they're okay. And you hear that music and you think, oh, okay, they're not going to attack me, when you first encounter them. But there's magic here. And I don't know. It's a lovely music to be in that environment. And then, of course, if you anger them, I don't think the music changes when you anger them, but a Dvergr, now unfriendly Dvergr music might be fun.
Might be fun
Yeah.
for the future.
Might be an indicator that something might have changed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you all say, obviously, there is definitely that kind of mystical and magical aspect. But what I know about those two songs is it still feels very human. There's like a certain humanity to it. I think it's a clarinet to me. It evokes more of that kind of the Dvergrs are different, but they're still a little bit like us. Like they behave like us. They're not completely different mystical creatures that don't belong in our world and vice versa. I feel like there's still a bit of humanity there.
You make a good point, and I think also the use of clarinet in Meadows that then links back to being used here. That it's a sign of sentient friendliness, which I think is what it's sort of come to represent. While the Greydwarf Camp, of course, uses string instruments, which have been used for a fair number of different scenarios. The clarinet still has its own niche.
Yeah, interestingly enough, since you mentioned the Discworld references, did you play the old point-and-click adventures, Discworld 1 and 2?
I did. Yes. Oh, what's that one called with the red? He's a pick and click adventure. Red.
Presumably the game title or the wizard.
Yeah, the wizard. I was thinking what his name was. But yes,
sure.
Yes, I did.
It's called in English. But yeah, but interestingly enough, since you mentioned that, and I what I can pull from my old bad memory, there seems to be links there with the flute sounds, and that was in there actually. Yes,
exactly. No, that's very true. It's a fun game. Yes. I'll have to find out what it is. Rondo form is the one I was thinking about before, which is A, B, A, C, A, D. Like you have a main theme you come back to, and then you change in between. The song that we were looking at there, the Greydwarf one, is not Rondo. It's basically an A, B. The first theme changes, the main theme, but the B theme is the same. So you could say like a B, A, C, A, D, A. It's sort of a reverse Rondo form instead. But that's just for the music nerdy people out there.
Yeah, and the wizard for the wizard nerdy people is Rincewind.
Rincewind, yes. Thank you. And for our next sort of double bill, I would like to listen to the abandoned cottages and the farms, the human farmsteads.
Ooh.
Okay, let's see the cottage one. I think that's this one. So that was the cottages, and then I believe this one is those little villages.
This is my favorite theme.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Patrick, you're trying to give those villages a whole history in that sound. I can just see things in my head because when we come across it, it's just this abandoned village, or maybe is this the ones where they have Dvergr, or the ones without the Dvergr? Do you remember? Which
Dvergr can exist in them. I mean, it's more of the place of the village because this is for Meadows, and sometimes these farmsteads exist on the cusp with the swamps and the plains, and there's more of the placings of, and sometimes they're Dvergr if I think the swamps are nearby.
Hmm.
Well, the Dvergr will actually spawn inside one of the villages. Like they'll have a whole spawner set.
Yeah, inside the houses. But yeah, that listening to that makes, as you walk up to the village, like you can it's almost like when I'm watching a movie, we get a flashback to when the village was built and there were things going on there. Like that's what that sound, that music, brings to my mind, is like the past. What was the history of this village when it was bustling and active?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And when I write this music, of course, there's all of the things and stories I've heard in my life that go on in the background. And there's, remember watching a documentary about a Soviet and Russian family who in the 20s, moved out into the wilderness of Siberia, and they were found in the 70s. They were living as a family, and there was one guy living nearby. But in the end, there was just this woman left. And she didn't want to move away. So the anthropologists would come and deliver stuff to her if needed. But it's that sort of looking back at your life and the bittersweetness of what has happened, almost like looking at that house and the gravestones of your family is what that sort of second theme is. And it's a bittersweet memory. And I really wanted to convey that. It's so human. And the people who have worked hard to build this. I know it's sort of made in the game, but equally this theme is for people who played Valheim and made things in the game, and then the base has become derelict and they come back to it. Like it's equally that of so many people building so many things and putting so much time and effort into things, and then that time still being valued and the creation being valued. That's what I wanted to get across. But there was a funny mistake that happened because I was given a big spreadsheet of all of the sort of extra places in the world, and they had marked out which ones needed to have new music. And the abandoned cottages, of course, they're more in the mountains. So I had filmed a film like that, and I didn't check the list because in those lists they had green marked a couple of places that were the ones I was going to compose for. And I didn't see that there were numbers in those slots as well. So what the Iron Gate wanted was to have the same theme for the villages and farms in Meadows as the mountains. But for me, that they're so different. Like, no, I have to compose a different theme. So when we got to close to the end of the contract, I said, "Oh, I have this many songs I've done." I said, "No, you've done. That's not the right number of songs you've done." Like, oh, that's strange. We'll have to check that. And we found out that they actually had numbered this place with the same number as before. And I thought, but just take this song. It's like this has to have its own song, and so that became the abandoned cottages. Because I think that the clarinet there is the sort of the human link that there used to be human life there, and especially in the cold, having the double bass pizzicato, and it's very sparse, very windy. I'm very happy with that one.
Yeah, I really like both, but as you said, the abandoned farms one, it's like the intensity of the emotion that comes across in that song. It tells a whole story that we can all relate to. It's kind of all our joys, all the sadnesses, a bit of nostalgia. As you said, it's a bittersweet, that balance of looking back at your life or what has happened, and yeah, it really comes across in that song.
Yay! It's me. I mean, as composers, we hope to write music that moves ourselves and make ourselves feel something. And the village and farm one is something that makes me feel happy to be alive, but also sad for the things we've lost. And it is that double-edged sword of celebrating life while acknowledging that things have passed. Especially now, I think about my father-in-law sadly passed away in January this year after a long battle with cancer. Campbell Haste, and it becomes even more potent that there has been life lost. Not that was what I put into this song, but I think it's an all human experience. Goes for anyone, but especially if someone has been close to you. And so, as the kids say, a shout out to Campbell Haste, my wonderful father-in-law, and thank you for the time we got together.
Well, I think we only have one other song that made it into the Mistlands update that we haven't heard yet. The
fan favorite,
the Stonehenge.
Oh yeah, that's true. But we do have two.
Oh, yes. Is there another one? What's the other one?
The Haldor.
Oh, and Haldor.
Haldor the Mercantile.
We'll save that one for last.
Wait, say that
again? We'll do the Stonehenges. I have a proposed title because I thought we'd just discuss after this the titles for the different pieces, and we could have a little bit of an influence on what they're going to be. Because usually what I did before was I wrote all the pieces, and then when it was soundtrack time, I thought, oh, we'll give them a bit of flavor and a bit of name. And I haven't done that for these necessarily. So I thought, let's get the team together, the brain together, and make something fun of it.
I love that.
All right.
But yeah, the plains, the Stonehenges, people know the Stonehenges in the plains.
Right.
But I also wanted this to be for the summoning stones, where you can summon the last boss of the first part of Valheim.
Oh.
So, and they're huge, big, great beasts of things. And I feel like I wanted to make something that worked for both of them. So it's mysticism, basically.
Yeah. All right, let's hear this one. And if you need a gaming server, you should check out my sponsor, Gportal. You can save 10% with my link at jiroctheviking.com/Gportal. There's something melancholic about that. Was that intentional?
I think that's the sound set used from the plains that helps give that. And then, of course, the melody at the end. I wouldn't say it was... It's not meant to be melancholic, but I do think of it as retrospective. Like it's a place where the Fulings would go to. There's a reverence to those sites, which I think is important for and a place for them to go, because their normal life is so geared towards fighting. It was nice to give them a place where they would go and not have to fight, because there's a sacredness to that site for them,
a place for them to reflect.
Exactly.
I just had an absurd idea for a name for that track too.
Cool. Chuck. We remember that one, and we'll chuck it out in the mix, so to say.
All right.
But I don't really have so much to say about that. It's basically, I use the same instruments as for the plains to sort of make them tie together.
Yeah.
But I think we should jump to the fan favorite now.
Okay, here we go.
Oh yeah, let's go.
This is old ye old Haldor himself.
I know Gwen and I are ready. We're like,
Before we get into that too much, I just want to say Gwen and I have talked about trying to organize a Valheim fan festival where we all come together somewhere over there in Europe, preferably Sweden, so that we can celebrate with Iron Gate. And I just have to say, Gwen, if we do that festival, I want that song playing.
We're hiring
loop.
a band to play.
Yes.
Patrick will have to hook us up with the musicians.
We need a band to play that.
This. Yes.
I know exactly who to call on for that.
Yay.
Amazing. I already know most of the steps of the actual dancing game. Don't ask me why. Long story. Yes,
Amazing.
totally up for that.
I'm so happy with this song because it sort of is the revenge for me. Because in the beginning, I tried to introduce like key fiddle into the game. I thought that would be perfect. But the boss of Iron Gate did not like folk music or that style of things. None of my demos like that made it in. And for Haldor, I made a more sort of reverent classical choir piece for him initially. Which they say, it doesn't fit with the feel of Haldor. So I came back with this and they absolutely loved it. And it's so nice that folk music stuff that I wanted to add now is making its way into the game.
Yes.
It's amazing. It gives, Haldor already has a lot of character. But this song just adds so much to it. And last time, just for the people who haven't heard the previous episode where we had you on, you told us that when you composed this music, you had in mind the story of Haldor and his pet Lox and the adventures that they would go on together, right? Like that's what was running through your mind.
Yes, because it's such a beautiful scenery and it's very wholesome. It's you can feel that there's a symbiosis between the two. That's very important. And I think that the music, the amazing adventures of Haldor and his Lox.
Amazing. I love that. I totally want a spin-off. Again, if I would love for Iron Gate to do, they do those like animated teasers of the biomes. If they started doing like animated teasers telling some of the lore and the backstory of we discussed earlier, the Greydwarfs, but if they did one like little fun skit, a little animated short of how Haldor and Halstein, his Lox,
Love that.
ended up, being merchants or something like that. That would be so fun.
That would be very cool. I also remember we chatted about harps last time. I can't remember if I used a Celtic harp sample or if it is a theorbo, but it's played in a very sort of Celtic harp way in the background, which I wanted as the counterpoint to the main melody when it's just sort of dancey before the melody starts.
And it's kind of a thing in video games, I guess, when you get to the town or to the tavern or to the marketplace, it's always some uplifting music, like the fiddle or something like that. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Perfectly.
And lots of old
Just
instruments.
Needs more meat.
And lots of old instruments here. I love chucking in old, 15th, 16th century instruments, and this really is a mashup. Of course, a key fiddle is an old instrument in itself as well. But old instruments are really fun and sound differently. Of course, a lot of those were also used for the Witcher soundtrack, and I think that some of the instruments I use also were used for the Witcher soundtrack.
Oh.
So, Patrik, I do have one critical criticism of that song. I hope you take it okay.
No, you can't, Jiroc.
You ready?
Not that song.
Here you go. Here's my one complaint with that song. It's too damn short.
Yes.
It's only 1 minute and 17 seconds. I feel like I'm just getting into it. I want another 5 or 6 minutes of that song.
Yeah.
Does a longer version exist or?
Not at the moment. It was, as always with Valheim, close to the very close deadline. So I think that like days before we were going to record, I wrote the end part of the song even. But I am taking that on board for things I'm going to propose to Iron Gate, making a longer version and more of this style of music.
Yes.
I had an idea. So when we were talking about this and Jules was saying about, taverns and so on. So one thing I noticed is, and it's across the board, whoever is playing Valheim, whether they play solo, with friends, whatever, they always build a base, right? And in the base, they need a kitchen. Often that kitchen ends up being a tavern. A lot of people build taverns in their bases and in their villages and in their towns. And I know we have the special theme tune for when it's, the base music, it has its own music. How amazing would it be if we had like a tavern music that would be of the same kind of folk and Celtic,
some kind of object that we could put in there that would play the music?
Yes, that would be.
The requirement would be there'd have to be more than 3 fermenters.
Something like that.
Oh my god! Either that, or it has to have like a hearth or some sort of like kitchen, cooking, all the cooking tables and stuff. It has to have a couple of tankards on item stands. That's it. That you need a couple of chairs, tankards, a fermenter or 2. And a cooking station, and that's how you trigger the tavern music.
That's how we make it secret.
Not to make it complicated or anything.
No, not to make it. I mean,
my idea is perfect. 3 fermenters or more. That's what triggers the secret track.
We can leave the complications to the programmers, the Iron Gate team.
I think that's a great idea. I'm absolutely on board with that, and you shall get fair credit when I managed to sell the idea enough to Iron Gate. That would be super cool.
In there.
So cool.
Yeah, letting the players have this music in their town or village. I can see even since they've introduced magic and other elements to the game, because some of the music plays to the strengths of the different cultures throughout the game, whether it be the Greydwarfs, the Fulings. Maybe we don't have much for the Dvergr yet, but the Dvergr, the dwarves and their magic, being able to play that music in your wizard tower, being able to play that music there would be awesome. Or, some version of Haldor's theme, as Gwen was saying, it would just be really awesome if players could get that going in their environment.
Do you make pro bono music? I could write a mod for that. Make a music box mod.
I was just going to say that we could probably make a mod for that, right? Jules is a modder, by the way, Patrik. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So you provide the music, I provide the code.
Bootleg music.
Yes. No, but that's interesting because I was commissioned to write a piece of music which is of the Valheim style, but not for Valheim, which was for a video that Gamerbrain, an Australian YouTuber, made. So there is music existing already, which is of Valheim, but not in Valheim. I have proposed to get that track in, so we'll see if I can get that in somewhere, because I like that idea. Oh, it's a doggo! There's a doggo!
If they decline, text me, Patrik. Text me. We get it in there.
We'll get it in there. No contractual problems at all. The main composer going out and writing music for Valheim mods.
Yeah,
no, we cut that. We cut that bit. Now we cut it. Jiroc, you cut that.
That's a quick way to poverty, because you don't get paid for modding.
But you get famous.
Yeah.
Internet fame.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
I had another, since you were talking about that, okay, if you will indulge my crazy ideas, I actually came up with that idea because it came up on my stream, and Jules, you might have been there. We were chatting about the music and how some tracks we love and we'd love to hear more often, or pick the music that plays in your base. So, okay, hear me out. A Valheim jukebox item that you place in your base, and where you actually pick the tracks that you want played in your base. It could, the jukebox idea was a bit ridiculous, but since we have magic,
Minecraft has that.
Magical items are a thing, how about buying from Haldor? Maybe after, maybe it has to be something to do with a Dvergr, maybe an item that you need to retrieve from their base or something, and then you go back to Haldor and purchase or swap that item for an enchanted instrument. Could be a Dvergr instrument that would unlock some of the songs, and you place that item, that instrument, in your base, and then you get to choose some of the tracks that play.
That's so good.
We could make
I think that's a good
just play
idea.
the songs.
Oh, what?
Just take the Dvergr model, put a little fiddle on it, and then you can put them coins.
Actually, have a Dvergr jukebox.
Yeah, actually have a Dvergr there.
I think a musical box that you just swap up the roles, so you get songs, and then it just by magic is turned, would be a fake physical way of solving that as well.
Yeah. Minecraft has something like that. They have a little music box, and actually throughout the world you find what looks like little records, little LPs, and you stick them in, and having some kind of little box, and maybe you have a music crystal, and what you put that in the box, and it emanates whichever song from the world you want. Sounds like a great mod, Jules. I don't think the music mod exists yet.
Is that a commission coming in?
Very nice indeed.
Well, so Patrik, we have one other song that you've sent over to me that is not in Valheim. Do you want to explain that before we hear it, or maybe explain it after we hear it?
I think we should listen to it and then I explain it.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. So there's, of course, there's music that gets made for movies and video games that never makes it into the game. And this is the second demo that I did for the Meadows biome theme. And I've been thinking about in the future, it would be fun to make sort of a compilation album of the music that didn't make it into Valheim. But I also always have the long-term goal that to try and get all the music, if it's not completely not working, but try to reorchestrate something, make it fit in the game. So this might be a thing that might come into Valheim later. We just don't know. But I usually write demos of about 10 to 20 seconds for a part of the game or a scene that they have a couple of ones to choose from. And it's a lot easier to talk about music when you have something to listen to and say, oh, I like this. I don't like that. I like the energy of this, but maybe not the melody of it. So this was, the second demo I made for Meadows, and it was fun to play it because the main Meadows theme is so listened to. It's nice to give a contrast that this is an alternative that never happened or could have been.
Interesting. How many tracks do you have like this, would you say?
10, 12 for the whole game.
Okay.
And those are tracks that we might see later, or some variation of them depending on where they might fit in.
I would say the mountain tracks, there are 5 of them. I would say the 4 ones, they're more like they're the build up to the final one. So it's not much point in having the other ones. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of sailing variations, which I'm hoping to get in for different environments. I've recorded some music for when you sail at night, which hasn't made it in yet, for example. Wow. And also, of course, I've gotten requests to make music when you fight the sea serpent, which is something on my radar. So I think that this track for Meadows could be made into really cozy rain in Meadows type, sitting by your hearth type song, which is what I'm hoping to make it into, but we'll see if that happens.
Oh, you could put it in the credits as is. It has kind of a final feeling to it, and
that is true. That is true.
Some major keys that are very like, you've done it. You've ascended to Valhalla. Now you're done. Good job.
You made it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if I had I had easily accessible the Haldor one that I made the choir version, because that's one I'm hoping to get into the game in a different way.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, a different Haldor song?
Yeah, this is the one he was talking about that they didn't end up liking.
Well, let's see here. We have some other questions too.
Yes.
We do.
I'll go into them. I'll see if I can find that later.
So, I was actually listening to the first and second podcast to try to come up with some of these questions. So, how many hours would you say you have in Valheim now? 'Cause we'd asked before, and it
120?
was, like starter numbers, but
Yeah. 100 and exactly, compared to many more well-seasoned travelers than me. I think about 120 hours, so
Okay.
not many.
but
The
still like more than what you had.
absolutely. It's because the problem has been for me that it's playing video games online is a way of connecting with my family and friends back in Sweden. And if we did have a fair amount of hours playing Valheim, but then everyone wanted to go back to Deep Rock Galactic, so that's what happened. And I haven't had as many friends here in Australia to play it with, but now I have a little group of friends who do want to play it, but we all work so much, we have to find the time around that. So we've been getting a couple of hours in of Valheim time, which is cool. So I'm looking forward to more of that. My idea is, because I haven't experienced the progression from starting the game to Mistlands, I wanted to see, like, can we get all the way there and get that experience? So I'm hoping to do that. And I mean, it would be really fun. It's a fun group of people because, of course, my partner, Philippa Murphy-Hayes, the clarinetist, who plays clarinet, she will be listening to it. So she's one of the players. My colleague, who I write music and do sound design with, Carla, is a player, and then my friend David as well, who's the sort of nominated builder he just builds everything. So we go out and
Every
pick
group
some
needs one.
Exactly. And I think that's why I don't play it solo, because I'm not a great builder. But when we go out and collect something, come back, it's like, how have you managed to build this in this short amount of time? So shout out to all the builders out there making Valheim absolutely fun. But I do want to play more. So that's why I'm hoping for this year, some more Valheim.
Yay.
And
Nice.
Jules, why don't you drop one of your questions?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, as you heard, I'm a Valheim modder, and so I'm more of a technical guy, not the music technical guy, but the technical guy. So I'm interested. Do you actually do all the post production, like post recording yourself?
Yeah, I do the complete audio package from initial idea to recording to mixing and mastering.
Okay, so then the follow up is what's your tool chain? What programs do you use? What's involved?
If I usually use Logic if I need to, because I mean, so many of these cases you need to make a song that sounds as close to the finished product immediately as possible. Because when you talk with game designers, I'm talking now generally in all companies, it's if you hear music that doesn't sound like what you're used to from Spotify or YouTube or CDs, then you're going to feel like it's not as good as what you expect. So we need to make something that is basically as close to 90% of the finished track as quickly as possible. So Logic is great for that. Sometimes when I write music, I sit with the individual instruments first. I'm going to be taking lessons in cello now, for example, just to understand it better and be able to play some background things, but leave the really advanced, cool melodic stuff to the really good players. And then I write that, for example, in Sibelius, which I use for musical notation. But then basically everything is in Logic, and my single chain is, there's always a compressor. I use H compressor by Waves. That's some nerdy talk, and I use an equalizer by Boz Digital called Hoser XT, which is my favorite EQ. It just sounds very human, very logical. That's the wrong word, but it sounds very nice. And you notice with an EQ, because all EQs can increase and sort of sound nice, but when you reduce a frequency spectrum, how nice that sounds really makes a difference between the EQs. And then I run Waves D6 multi-band compressor to compress it when I master. and a Fab Filter Pro L as the final limiter. That's basically my setup, with small variations in between. Lots of bought instruments, lots of sample stuff. It's been 16 years now of accumulating stuff.
Okay, so favorite VSTs.
Omnisphere for synthesizers, East-West Quantum Leap Opus, of course, Contact, the sampler, has a lot of stuff. I use Cinesample strings, winds, and brass, and also a lot of small makers of Contact instruments. I would say it's Omnisphere, it's Contact, and sometimes, not for this, but I just want to give a shout out to like YMKX. They do an 8-bit chip synthesizer plug that's called Magical 8-bit, which is just fantastic. So sometimes I use that for other projects when I want that 8-bit feel.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know that.
No, I do so many things. I mean, now we're hopefully going to sign a contract with a game where we're going to do a score for a big band. Like, it's going to be jazz all the way. 1950s to 1960s, and some surf music as well. So that's going to be really fun. So
that sounds
multi-tool things. I love doing many different genres. So I'm studying a lot of jazz at the moment.
Cool. MD, you have a few more questions?
Don't I ever? So you had mentioned this earlier, but I was recently in the swamps and had entered the crypts, and they seemed fairly quiet. And so if you could go back and add music to the crypts specifically, what sounds do you think would inspire you, and what instruments do you think you might use?
So the Swamp soundtrack was inspired by Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings soundtrack, when they go, it's an A-B song where the A is more atonal. It's just symphony orchestra, like ambient stuff. And then I wanted a melody there as well. So I think I would go in the same vein for the crypts, but I think I would like to, because I've gotten up to, in the game, I've gotten up to those crypts. I would like to add a sort of the same retrospective, like with the Dvergr. I would like to add how they would, like the humans they used to be, and the crypts being where they sort of they're laid to rest, but they never rest there. They're resurrected elsewhere. So I think I want to do a quirky instrument. I'd probably do background of cello and bass clarinet, but I would like a new lead instrument on top of that. Maybe oboe is something I've been thinking of using for that, which is also very sort of human instrument. But yeah, symphony orchestra, cello, bass clarinet, and oboe I would do for that. And it's a great suggestion you have. I might go back and add that into the pile, because I think it's missing there.
Well, the Dvergr are the closest thing in the world to us Vikings, right? They're the only ones that were human, in a former life, as where everything else is some kind of creature, mythical creature or something. So it'll be interesting to hear what sound comes out of that. These once humans who are, basically the Walking Dead, right?
Exactly. That's a very good question. Thank you for pointing that out. Well needed.
What else you got, MD?
We should talk about those track names.
Yes.
I think we should. I'm very curious to see. To see what you got to, and you said you wanted to brainstorm potentially a couple of yet unnamed ones.
Exactly. I've all have tentative names now, but I am open for a better name, because you've of course experienced the game and you know the music in a very different way than I have, and I think that's very valuable. Let's see if I can get those tracks up.
One for the listeners. At Patrik Jarlestam, right there underneath his picture there in the video stream. You can go over to Twitter, and if you have any cool sounding names that you can come up with for these tracks, you should tweet them to him. And, follow him over there, and the more minds you put together, the more cool ideas you get.
Exactly. I would say like the Fuling encampment. I thought it would be Fuling Camp, and I think I was thinking of like we gather for the ritual. Because it's sort of, but that also sort of ties in with the Stonehenges. I don't know about that one. That's one I'm on the fence about.
Well, yeah, what you said earlier about the feelings coming to the Stonehenge as a place to sort of get away from their very militant combat, aggressive life, to maybe be a little bit more reflective on the past and the ancients and the gods or whatever it is as part of their culture.
Well, that was at the Stonehenge, right?
Yeah, the Stonehenge.
Yeah, so the Fuling Camp, I know, I was thinking something like forbidden magic or practice or sorcery or something. Like, there's something very active and forbidden there,
I was thinking of the Vicious Farmstead because it's sort of both of that, but
I would have said something like the Horde under attack, because the Horde is attacking the raid. And again, that track just reminded me a lot of that raid, except this time it's us raiding them. So it's the Horde under attack. And again, the Horde element is, again, it gives you that idea that it's a tribe, they've got a civilization, they're organized as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I do like that one. And that also ties into the Greydwarf Camp, like a summoning of minds. I want to tie into their sort of humanness, but also, I'm not completely happy with that one.
Okay, so for the Greydwarf Camp, what did I write? So I'm trying to remember exactly what the runestone says, but the history, the backstory of the Grey Dwarves is something along the lines of the bones of criminals and, all of the horrible, rotten people of the world have come back and grown into these sort of like plant creatures. And so I was thinking, as the roots grow or life renewed, because basically when you hack at them, they literally bleed sap or resin. It's greenish yellow blood.
Oh, I've got the. Do you want me to read out the runestone?
Yes. Oh, that'd be lovely.
Let all who read me beware of the Grey Dwarfs, the skulkers in darkness, the soulless ones. They are born from rot and rainfall. They spring like mushrooms from the smoking soil. There is nothing on their tongues or behind their eyes. Those who fear nothing should still fear them. When the soul of a murderer or a great sinner rots under the ground, it makes a hollow cyst which draws rock and wood and moss to it. It gathers up the pea into flesh, braids reeds into bone, and takes rags for skin. It's really disgusting, actually.
Yeah.
It should not walk. It should not walk, but when the night comes, it walks. Should you who reads this see one with a sword to your hand, lance it and let it out, or put it to the torch, for it fears the flame.
So maybe as the roots grow might be really appropriate, maybe.
Maybe one. I think I settled on smoking soil, moss, and bones.
Oh.
Because it feels like a good amalgamation of all the things in that text.
Yeah. Well, the runestones in the game are very poetic. We've had the writer on the podcast before, and yeah, I would if you really want to settle on final names for these, I really encourage doing if you just Valheim wiki the runestones, you can search any one of those and see those very poetic words that the writer put together for those.
Oh yeah,
probably a lot of great ideas there.
Absolutely.
I use the URL names, so. But yeah, I'm the tech guy.
I was going to say the Dvergr excavation site, just call it Dark Hatchets. But I wanted something about digging, something about the excavation, but also I think we found them to be more, through our chats here, more interesting. So I thought we'd find something for that one.
Or like finding treasure or mysteries to discover.
Uncovering the past.
Industrious grave site.
Yes.
Industrious, that's a good yeah.
Well, because like they're actively pulling up bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why something about uncovering or digging up the past is kind of interesting, because it's like when you go through the Mistlands, there was this crazy battle that was fought, with the Jotun, and their remains are just littered all over the place. So it seemed they're out there reaping the benefits of those old, that old battleground of the giants,
like brains.
Yeah.
Just brains.
Well, yeah, mostly the brains, right? They're there for the brains, like zombies.
I think Unearthing the Past is a good title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one.
Simple and to the point, and unearthing is just such a wonderful word.
It is.
Dvergr Tower, a tower of knowledge, is sort of it's to the point, but it's not that poetic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Dvergr on their runestone, it says something about them being the forlorn. Is that the word that they used? Morning darkness.
Indeed.
Yeah. So there's something sad about their existence, since they're referred to in that way.
Well, because they've lost everything.
Well, yeah, they only have one runestone here that I see in the wiki, and it's pretty short. It just says the Dvergr are the descendants of the great smiths of old, delvers into the deep earth, seekers of hidden treasure. Here in Valheim, they mine the bones of Jotun and distill eider, the stuff of magic. If left alone, they are happy with their own plans and care little for the lives of others. But when raised, they will defend themselves. So,
don't piss them off.
Yeah, seekers of treasure and distilling eider and the stuff of magic. The towers definitely feel like a magical place.
Yeah, but you often
it's also
find. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's also very isolated. There's the whole forlorn thing, and the fact that they're like just all in the Mistlands and completely kind of separated out. It doesn't, they're all kind of almost in exile. So something about like exile, not abandoned. It's
I've written down distilled knowledge in stone, but I haven't found the last one for that yet.
I think you're on.
Well, I was gonna say you often find that they have like fermenters of their own, and so one of the things I'd been thinking was magic brewing.
Nice idea.
Magic brewing. I do like that one.
Well, that's basically what the players do, right? When they go into the Mistlands, the end goal of the Mistlands is more to discover magic and then to go through the process to harvest what you need for magic and brew it, cook it up so that you can then harness the power of magic. But obviously they have already they've already mastered that when you get there. So, they're the masters, of magic already. So some interesting thoughts there for that one.
Yes. But the Seeker Queen, I was thinking the Seeker Queen's Mayhem.
Okay.
But not sold on that one either.
I came up with really just silly ones, honestly.
I like your last one, kneel to the Queen.
Well, because there's just some of the music there, especially the way that the percussive aspect of it is with the beat and then it's against the beat, and it's just like it feels almost like not only does it just move you, but it almost feels like it's like trying to smack you, like, no, get down.
That's how the fight feels as well.
I think kneel to the Seeker Queen is that's the one.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I love that.
It has good energy. Mistlands, one that was proposed on Twitter was Unveiling Land of Distant Memories, I think.
Very nice.
A suggestion here, which was Land of Distant Memories. Yeah,
I believe that was from the YouTuber who took all of the soundtrack pieces and put them up on YouTube. Something that I thought of based on what you had talked about in the second interview we did was an land of renewed hope. Now that the Vikings are here, can clear out the bugs, maybe the Dvergr can come back and take back what they have built and take back what they have created in their homeland.
I like the idea of hope. The music is very hopeful. It would
very hopeful.
Really, yeah.
What if we do a combo of that? I think that's a good idea. Would you land? Probably not land. Land is such an overused word. Let's do Earth of renewed hope, unveiling distant memories. Long one, so it doesn't flow as well, but it's also Mistlands. It's very. There's a lot of.
Well, maybe with one of my favorite websites, Word Hippo, when I'm writing to get the synonyms, of words, and then a word that you didn't consider that's similar in meaning pops up that might fit in better.
I love that.
That's true. I was going to ask, it's an old word. I was thinking for the Haldor theme, a dance for Haldor, the mercantile, or would you say the mercanter? Or do we have a better name all around?
Well, the merchant rolls off the tongue a little easier, but it doesn't have as much mystique as
that's true.
The word mercantile. Or,
Trader?
You know what?
Sorry? Trader? If you looking for a word that is a bit more, kind of feels a bit more medieval, a bit more...
Exactly. I was thinking there's a long tradition of polska, which is a dance in Swedish folk music, Scandinavian folk music, where they call polska for someone or by, and so that's why I sort of wanted to interlock with because it's not a polska. I don't know what I would call it, but a dance for Haldor the Trader, a polska for Haldor the Trader.
I do still love the idea of the origin of the song being this kind of the adventure of Haldor and Halstein, his locks. So maybe it's the one. Maybe it's the if it's a polska for not Haldor but Halstein, that would be kind of a fun little.
Adorable.
And he spells it Hallstein, Halstein, right?
Halstein, yeah, like
double L or single L.
Single L.
Let's call it The Adventures of Haldor and Halstein. I think that's...
Yes.
Well, yeah, naming those two. I wanted to suggest something, too. If you haven't started playing with it yet, you might consider it as a creative. It's such a good idea generator, but I've been playing with ChatGPT, the new chat OpenAI. So I actually, while you guys were talking, I just said, I need a title for a song about a fantasy dwarf who travels and sells his wares. And I'm just going to substitute dwarf for the Dvergr, but it said The Wandering Dvergr and His Treasures, which is like a fun title. And you can just hit give me another answer to the same question, or you can slightly tweak your question to start to, expand on the concepts of that title. Like give me an alternate version, but include this, or have more words or fewer words. And it's such a great idea generator because you're guiding it the whole way. And then maybe you pull a piece from that into this. I've already started doing that with my scripts for my videos because it's just like because what do I normally do for research? Like Word Hippo, searching Google, tons of research. Yep. But I just ask the chat AI and it just lets me refine it down to really interesting little concepts. And it comes up with all kinds of cool things. So it actually is saving me a lot of research time. So it might be something to play with. I think you'd come up with that one title that it just came up. I thought, wow, that's not too bad, actually.
Yeah.
What? Say that one title again.
It says The Wandering Dwarf and His Treasures, but I would, maybe swap that out for Dvergr.
Yeah.
I like the wandering bit because he is a nomad merchant, but
and he's selling his treasures.
Try to ask the AI if you can add the pet locks, the pet the pet horse or something in there.
Yes.
because that's what's missing. Add Halstein, and then you've got a good one. I like the wandering one. It's good. Yeah.
We could do the wandering adventures of Haldor and Halstein.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
I think I like that.
Yeah, so because it wouldn't know what a lox is. So I said add the pet cow Haldstein to that title, and it says the wandering dwarf and his treasured cow Haldstein. You swap it out, Dvergr and lox, right? So the wandering Dvergr and his treasured lox Haldstein.
Locks, stocks, and 2 smoking gold coins.
Oh, there you go. That's great. To play on a pop culture movie reference.
Exactly. I think the last ones we have left is the Village and Farm, A Sigh of Human Life, which is okay. And also...
Yeah. No, I like that title.
And also the Abandoned Cottages, Human Echoes in Cold Abodes. But Abandoned Cottages is probably just better.
Yes.
I like both titles. The sigh of human life is perfect. The sigh is really it's
poetic. Yeah,
describes it well. Mm-hmm.
We'll keep that. That would be nice. I think I'm quite happy with we have the plain Stonehenge's towering figures, but it's probably but that's the summoning stones for the end boss. That would be like, because the Stonehenges in a sense are not towering in that sense. Maybe we should do some Fuling introspection.
So the one I came up with is absolutely silly because it might have something to do with my name. Darkness Rising.
Darkness Rising, yes. And also combining that with your name as well. Morning Darkness. Morning Darkness.
No.
Just make sure you have 5s instead of S's.
No, Jiroc.
I was going to say Stones of Morning Darkness.
There you go.
That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so silly.
I will write that down in the meantime.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm blushing so hard right now.
Yay!
We'll see. Another word that I added when we were brainstorming around the Stonehenges, there's the music has that idea of something that's dormant, like a dormant power that you don't want to necessarily wake up.
That's also a true one, a good one.
Yeah.
Don't know what to do with it in terms of name, but that's the feeling that it evokes.
Yes. I have to think a little bit more about that one, but I'm quite happy with the other ones we've gotten.
Yeah.
So Fuling Camp is the Horde under attack now.
I love that.
Amazing.
Nice.
And I'm happy with the Kneel one, Kneel to the Seeker Queen. That's a really good one as well.
Yeah, well, and the fact that she's called a queen, which is royalty, and you're kneeling before her, it's perfect.
Yes. And we've got Greydwarf Camp, Smoking Soil, Moss and Bones, Village and Farm, Sigh of Human Life, Dvergr Excavation Site, Unearthing the Past, Dvergr Tower, Magic Brewing, I like that one. Mistlands, Earth of Renewed Hope, Unveiling Distant Memories. I might see if I tweak that a little bit.
Yeah.
Seeker Queen we've done. Stonehenge, I really do like the Storms of Morning Darkness, or sort of dormant energy something. We'll see. I'll tweak that a little bit. And then the Wandering Adventures of Haldor and Halstein, that's the best one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like there's a fable there that you're being introduced to. It's so much fun.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your help. This was amazing. This has really helped me.
Yay!
Thank you for letting us be part of that process. It's amazing.
Know, right?
Now we have a story to tell. We can be like, yes, we were there when those songs were named. And for everyone listening to the podcast, this is pretty much the premiere. Literally, you can't get any fresher news.
Yeah,
because the soundtrack is not released yet entirely.
No, that's true. Exactly, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Well,
I love a bit of fan participation, and it feels like we're doing something together because you have such energy for the game that this is just makes it better.
I'm not usually very good at coming up with titles, but I'm fairly good at inspiring people to get there. So if you ever want help, you have me on Discord.
I'll send you a message.
Just, you know.
Awesome.
I'll just shoot ideas at you. I spend so much time in the game. I've got like 3,000 hours in the game. So
I'm way behind.
just a little bit.
I also forgot to mention that the flute player who recorded for this soundtrack. Let's see, I want to get her name right. It is Kinsey Alexander Swatton is her name. She's a good friend of mine and also has a name that I always have to look up because it's amazingly cool and long and different. So just because I didn't mention her by name, so I just wanted her name out there.
Nice.
Well, we've been at this almost 2 hours, and it's been absolutely lovely. I feel like we could probably go on talking about Valheim and music and the future and of the music for another 2 hours. But I would love to do this again in the future.
Exactly, I'll get back to you when there is more music in Valheim.
Yes.
Can we actually on that? Can just a last question I really want to squeeze,
go
and
for it.
MD, I'm sure you too. I don't know how much you can say about it, but obviously Iron Gate has been teasing a lot of information about the new biome, the next biome, which is the Ashlands. Will we have the pleasure to hear your music associated to the new biome? And if so, what are the kind of maybe hints that you can give us on the theme, the feel of it, if you've already been at that part of the process?
I actually have not been commissioned to write any more music as it is now. That's where it stands. But I have asked them to sort of plan it in so that, because like I said, the Valheim stuff has usually come quite late and like, oh, we had 2 months until we need this finished now. And then we just sort of, I work really hard at that and I want to have more time to work on it. So I'm hoping that I can get in earlier this time and make something. I have a feeling that I will be writing the music. You can never say until there's a contract. Nothing is true until there's a contract. But I think that I've made good enough music that they will want me back. But we shall see. I shall, when I have something more to tell about what's happening, I will. I mean, the interesting thing looking back at what Mistlands used to look like with the spiders and all of that, and now is the Mistlands, very different. I've seen sort of some images of the Ashlands, but we have no idea what that's going to look like in the end. It might completely change.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't seen it in game, actually.
Yeah, just like the Mistlands, the old Mistlands would have had a very different sound, obviously, than what we have now. But yeah, it's
exactly
still too early in the process. But even with the images that they've released, I don't know, for some reason, I hear a lot of like heavy drums.
Yes, me too.
Don't you just
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, so
I don't know, something about the Ashlands. I just hear heavy drums, but who knows where it's gonna go.
What are they? I know this name. What are they called? The really giant, Asian style drums. The
taikos.
Yeah, the giant Japanese taiko.
Japanese,
drums. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Which I actually have. I'm possibly going to record for another game. I have a friend who plays taiko here with an organization called Taikos, and I'm see if I can rent some players from there and record something with that for another game, and then that would tie very well in with this.
Awesome.
We shall see. We shall see.
Sorry, the music nerd in me is just like having a field day right now.
Well, thank you for the suggestion. I'll keep that in the back of my head if I get to write more music, which I hope I will.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good idea if like multiple of us had a similar idea without even talking to each other about it. So,
Exactly. That's very true.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing the Meadows song that didn't make it into the game. It's interesting to hear that a sound like that. It's not in the game, but it still feels of Valheim. So I can see it
feels like you're coming home.
Yeah. So thank you for your time and thank you for sharing.
Thank you everybody for your time and passion and fun. And you're all really lovely people to get to chat with.
Thanks, Patrik. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Yay.
All right. Well, I
So
think.
I hope you have a lovely day, everybody.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for joining me, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
That's
Yay.
it.
Woohoo!
That's it for now. Have fun out there.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.